In Our Expert Opinion podcast is brought to you by Saunders Real Estate, the Southeast's leading land and commercial real estate firm, helping clients make bold and informed investment decisions since 1996.
Greetings and welcome to another edition of In Our Expert Opinion podcast. I'm your host, David Hill, and today is going to be a little bit of a different episode, something I'm really looking forward to. I have a very special guest, a friend of mine who I've known pretty much my entire life. I was earlier trying to calculate how long I've known Alexander, and I think it's about 28 years, if I'm not mistaken, which I'm not going to say how old I am, but that's probably about 90-something% of my life. So I'm excited about this one. Like I said, it is going to be a little bit different. Normally when I'm on here, we're talking about Arkansas stuff, but this one is going to be about Florida. It's going to be about the Panhandle specifically, which people may or may not know this. I actually grew up in the Panhandle of Florida. I'm from Niceville, as is Alexander. So we're going to be talking some development in the Panhandle of Florida. So without further ado, I'll introduce our guest. His name is Alexander Alford. I call him Big Al, but I'm going to try to stick with his actual name.
You can roll with Big Al. It's all good.
Okay. But so Big Al is the Director of Construction and Development for ROMAIR Homes. So Big Al, welcome. Glad to have you.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, man. What did I miss?
I was thinking about the same. I was wondering, how the intro would go. And I'm 30. I'm about to be 31 next week. And I was trying to think my earliest memory of us, together. And I couldn't think of us, but your brother, John, for the listeners, my earliest memory with him was, 4 or 5 years old playing Little League baseball at Twin Oaks in Niceville, Florida. So it's been a long time.
It has. We go way back. Well, man, so talk to us a little bit about ROMAIR.
Yep.
For those that don't know, just so you know, Alexander, most of our listeners are in the Central Florida area. So Saunders is headquartered in Lakeland.
I see.
But we have an office in Thomasville, Georgia, that covers the Panhandle. So
cool. Yeah, so ROMAIR was founded probably 23 years ago, something like that now, by Jason ROMAIR, who's also my father-in-law, and Jason is traditionally been a home builder, up and down the Panhandle here, the Emerald Coast, and started his business. I think it was early 2000s. Came down here from Louisiana, moved his family down here, and picked up a lot and built a spec home. And, like a lot of guys get their start in the home building business, built a spec home, sold it, made a few dollars, bought 2 lots, built 2 spec homes, and kind of did the same thing. And then grew his business from there. And he was primarily doing more, custom homes, kind of one-offs, if you will, and really kind of continued that through, coming into the Great Recession in 2008, and was fortunate enough to not kind of get caught like a lot of other home builders and real estate developers did at that time. He was in a good position with his business and had minimal debt and not over leveraged and things like that, and was able to kind of walk unscathed from that time. And on the back end of the recession, Jason likes to tell a story how he went out to the builder show in Las Vegas and listened to this older builder who'd been in the business for a long time speak about transitioning from the custom home building business to more of production homes and kind of selling commodities and widgets, if you will, versus when you build a custom home, you have to learn the process every time. Every detail is unique, and the subcontractors have to get refamiliarized with something new. And it's a great business, but it's challenging to scale. There's only so much bandwidth that can go around, and kind of had an aha moment, if you will, and made a decision to come back, from that show, kind of energized, and was fortunate enough to had the opportunity to partner with St. Joe as a preferred builder in watercolor at the time, which for those of the listeners who aren't familiar, is a big, master plan community here on Highway County 30A. I think it's 1,100 units or something like that. But Jason probably built, 300 homes in watercolor over the next, 8 to 9 years, and really took his business from kind of, one-off custom homes to production home building in that time frame from 2010 to 2015. Since then, we've I don't know how you want to go timeline here wise, but we've kind of, the property I'm sitting at right now, I'm in our construction offices at Kaya Beach Resort, which is a mixed use community just west of Alice Beach. With those of the listeners who are familiar, overall, we're a master plan community, so we're the owner, the general contractor, and the developer. So we kind of wear all hats here and have our own brokerage on site. So we kind of, Jason bought this property, I think in 2013. He contracted it. Took a couple of years of due diligence, and we can kind of get into the story of that if you'd like to. But transition more from just the single family home building to overall kind of developer, and have this master plan community going on. And it's a great project and a dynamic project. A lot of mix of uses and different components going on. And then separately, we still have our home building business, which is still very active.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's two specialties that y'all focus on primarily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of the development world, which is more Kaya, and a lot of visioning, master planning, overall kind of, won't call it town planning, but building a cohesive resort, where the mix of uses kind of complement one another, is a totally different animal. Very related, obviously, and it's great to have a construction background in that, but it functions, pretty independently, and the responsibilities are kind of different than our direct home building business, if you will.
Yeah. So is the Kaya piece of the business totally separate, or is there some overlap there?
No, there's a ton of overlap. I guess what I meant was in terms of the scope of responsibilities. Home building is, not to oversimplify it, but it's relatively straightforward in the production world. Once you kind of establish a floor plan and you have your finishes, and you kind of understand what you're selling immediately, and then you go and you execute on the construction. You've kind of got a prescribed cycle time, and it's relatively straightforward. Not easy, but relatively straightforward. On the development side, it's always it's very dynamic, especially for us, running a small business here. We're very, we're boots on the ground. We're here every single day, and we're paying attention to what the market wants, what's selling, what's not selling, what can, create the best experience for our homeowners and our guests. And not only just, so we can execute on this one property that we have here today, on 30A, but so we can build a brand that can kind of transcend this area and go to other markets, and follow a similar model, if you will, if we were to go to a different community and try to bring a development of this sorts to that area.
Yeah, I want to talk about the vision going forward in a minute, but before we do, tell us a little bit about what your role is within the company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my title is the Director of Construction and Development. And basically what that means is, I get the privilege to oversee everything that's, built and, designed here, and, basically everything that comes out of the ground. I play, a part in with a phenomenal team who helps us execute, on the construction. And, there's a lot of things that go in. It's almost hard to sit here and unpack them all, but there's a lot of things that go into, building a condominium building, or building a hotel, or building, even, single family houses within a community. There's the legal work, there's the entitlements to, go before the county and get approved to build, what it is we feel the market needs or wants. And, then there's the construction, which is obviously, kind of our wheelhouse, but nonetheless, a substantial amount of work, and the financing. So, like I said, I'm fortunate enough to kind of get to, help steer the ship, so to speak. And development's a lot of like collaboration with, various professionals, with surveyors, engineers, designers, construction people, and just kind of corralling everybody towards a common goal of, selling something and then ultimately building something and delivering to a customer. And so that's kind of my role, is the shepherd, if you will.
Sounds like you wear a lot of hats.
We all wear a lot of hats. I mean, development is a lot of hats, right? Like I said, it's not, that's why I say the home building business is much more straightforward. You sell something, you build it, you give it to a customer. The development, there's so many different players in the mix to move everybody in a, cohesive direction. It's just a lot slower and a lot more coordination, but that's what makes it so fun. I deal with all different types of people, and it's a people game. We get to go and meet these people and interact with them, and find out what makes them tick, and ultimately try to progress our project with the right group of people. And not, nobody likes working with people who aren't fun to be around, and it's nice to collaborate. We've got a great group of people that we work with on a day-to-day, and I love what I do.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So I know one of the big projects that y'all worked on recently, and I'm actually not entirely sure what stage of the project y'all are currently at with it, is water sound. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because a lot of, just so you know, like water sound, it's pretty high end. I'll let you talk a little bit more about that, but that's probably more of the development land. That's probably closer to a lot of what we do at Saunders.
Right.
Not that we, can't do resort or beach front properties like Kaya, which we can talk more about in a second too. But we do a lot of development land similar to water sound. So talk to us a little bit about that project.
Yeah, so we're primarily where we're at is Water Sound Origins. Water Sound as a whole is a brand and kind of a development that the St. Joe company, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with. St. Joe is very, very interesting backstory. I'll spare everybody from it, but just high level. They used to be a paper company back in the early 1900s in Florida, and amassed a massive amount of land holdings, and in the last 20 years has liquidated some of that, but it has also kind of focused in on entitling the what we refer to here locally as the sector plan. And really that's the East Walton County, West Bay County, and then even working a little further east. It's basically a 50-year development plan that St. Joe has come up with and has been approved by the region to deliver. I'll butcher the numbers, but you can look it up. I think it's 170,000 home sites, a couple million square feet of commercial and industrial space, and so just a massive scale development over the next 50 years. And Water Sound Origins, which is where the majority of our home building business exists today, is kind of right at main and main, if you will, of that sector plan. It's a community that currently we have maybe 35 lots, and we're one of 10 preferred builders in there. But St. Joe, obviously within their land holdings, will go and will work with us. We'll work with other builders to kind of develop pods of lots, if you will, that fit our spec and our homes and kind of what we want to sell. And all of the builders are kind of like stratified, if you will, to various price points and market segments, and they'll work with us. St. Joe's more the developer in this scenario, and we're more just home builder, but they'll work with us to say, hey, where we're at, we're in 2025. They'll work with us to say, hey, we've got, kind of this pot of lots earmarked for you guys for next, third quarter next year. How can we work together to create, value for the customer, and, so on and so forth. So, yeah, we build probably, 30 to 50 houses in a busy year in Origins. And like I said, we're one of a handful of builders in there.
Okay. Anything else that y'all have going on besides Kaya and Water Sound Origins?
No, I mean, we have not on the full development side. I mean, we build some odds and ends kind of on your lot houses that we talk about. But for us, we're very focused on, Kaya and, keeping the Origins business strong. But Kaya is, kind of the main part of our business right now because of, what I mentioned at the beginning, where we feel, we we can take this, this product, if you will, this resort lifestyle amenity, based community, and bring that to other areas. And I think that's something that we'll be certainly, inquiring with some land brokers about in the future. It's not, more trying to find the right market and, where we can get the acreage. Cause obviously we're 30 acres, which in, your world is very small, but in, our world of 30A is massive. So we do need some acreage on that front, but, primarily focus on those two deals, and it keeps us busy for now.
Yeah. So it sounds, you alluded to this a little bit earlier. It sounds like there is a vision for geographic growth. Is that all in
Yes.
Florida? Or have y'all kind of pinpointed some areas where you want to be?
We haven't pinpointed, the exact specifics, but I don't think it would just be in Florida. No, I think there's a lot of opportunity for, our amenity here is the beach, right? Everybody, is familiar with that. But I don't think it necessarily has to be the beach, or has to be, somewhere here close to where we are. We've thought about mountain locations, and, outside of Austin, where there's lake country, and, just beautiful areas that have great outdoor, lifestyles, if you will, to where we can bring kind of our vision of a wellness oriented community to that. So we hadn't, we've got some spots up on the board,
Yeah.
inspiration wise, but we hadn't dialed in until, to the level of like exact sites or anything. We're super, committed to like executing what we've got right here at hand. And we feel like the deals and the land opportunities will kind of, present themselves once we're through executing.
Yeah. So is the construction with Kaya completed, or where are we at with that?
No, we've got quite a ways to go. We're probably like 35% built out or so. Just kind of high level. We're 173 residential units. And that's a mix of, single family, condos, townhouses, and then we've got a 40-room boutique hotel that we're going to be developing kind of at the heart of the community, which is over amenitized, not just for the 40 guest suites, but for the the community at large, if you will, the residences. So big, beautiful pool amenity, fitness facility, spa, and really is kind of the hub of the community in terms of the services and the amenities.
Yeah. What was talk to me about the genesis of the vision behind it in the first place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Jason bought this, like contracted this property in 2013, I believe. And, was fortunate enough to buy it at a great number, and, use the land broker on that deal on the, on the front end. And long story, the I'll keep it brief, but the guy before had paid an enormous amount of money for the land, like a lot of people, in 2006, and lost the property to foreclosure. And, through, what I believe to be, divine events, basically came back to him in, 2013, and, was able to get the property under contract for a great number. And because he was able to get it at, bought at such a good number, he was able to kind of really, dial in and focus as to what the property really, deserved. And if, for anybody who's not familiar, like 30A is a really, really like spectacular area. It's very unique, even from, different from where we grew up 40 minutes west of here. There's been such a high standard set by the developers before us with Seaside and Rosemary and Alice Beach that it felt wrong to us to just come in and be like, oh yeah, we're home builders. Let's just slap 200 houses on there and move on. It felt like it could be a lot more, and probably would have been easier to just slap 200 homes on there and be done. But
Probably.
no, it's been great, and so to the point of your question, where the genesis of the vision come from, I think, through a lot of, time spent, from Jason, and, a lot of great, marketing, visionaries around there. We've got our creative director, a guy named Terry Slaughter, works with us, and he and Jason are just, when they're in the room together, it's awesome to watch go back and forth in terms of the creativity, and some of the stuff they come up with is like, hard to execute, but it's a great North Star for us. And so really the vision is from Jason's heart, if you will.
So I have to imagine that there's some unique challenges that come along with developing like a luxury beachfront property on or right off the Gulf compared to, I mean, Water Sound Origins is what, probably a mile or two inland, but it has to
a mile
be
or two
worlds
inland.
different,
Yeah,
right?
It's totally different. Yeah, it's totally different. I think, I mean, there's a ton. I'll just start rambling, and you can cut me off when you want. But even just like things as practical as like building insurance, when you're closer to the water, it gets very challenging for some of these insurers to get that going. But I think one of the biggest things is the architectural level that we're executing here at Kai is like as high as it gets. I mean, Alice Beach is next door, and they've got great craftspeople. They've kind of trained a level of craftsmen here in the subcontractor base that is familiar with this product, but it's not easy. And just like everywhere else in the country over the last handful of years, especially heightened with COVID, the labor pool is extremely limited here. Not just from a like a management office side, but from a subcontractor based side. And it's not before I was here, I lived down in Miami, and I worked for a big kind of international developer, if you will. We developed the highest end condos and hotels in the world, really, country. And I remember my first week here, I showed up, and it was like June of 2020. We kind of inadvertently moved back, and one of our subcontractors, I forget who it was, we're building 10 townhomes at the time. One of our subcontractors was giving me a hard time, not showing up, not staffing the job properly. And I'm like, let's get this guy out of here. Let's move on. And this is like, this is a typical story here, but so we did. I was reactive, and I was like, let's get this guy out of here. Let's move on, find somebody else. And it worked out on that deal, but it became very apparent to me, when I was in Miami, great tradespeople are a dime a dozen, and you can pick up the phone, and 10 minutes later you've got people knocking down your door trying to work with you. And here it just doesn't exist. There's such a tight crew of people who are capable at executing this level of construction. And so I kind of learned that the hard way on that deal. But it's that's a challenge. The proximity of the Gulf is a challenge with the insurance and all of that stuff. And I think kind of like a broader challenge for us has been on the Kaya side versus the Origin side, is that we're a small business. We're not St. Joe. We're not EBSCO, who's developing Alice Beach, which is a big corporation kind of backing it. It's us as individuals, and we pour our heart into this thing every single day. But on the front end of a development of this scale, that's a very typical question, or objection that we get from buyers in the sales process is what assurances do we have that you're what happens if something happens to Jason? What happens if something happens to you, Alexander? Like, they want to know that. And it's a really fair question, because we're not as robust infrastructure wise as one of these big publicly traded companies. And it's something we've been able to navigate super well. And we've done that by being conscious to not over leverage ourselves or overextend ourselves, and also just through a lot of hard work to get this place built and de-risk this for investors and home buyers and customers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I got off on a tangent there, but hopefully that was okay.
No, that's great, man. I figured that there would be a lot of things that are a lot different. I didn't think about the labor piece of it, just given the craftsmanship level of craftsmanship that's needed for that compared to like spec homes that are
Oh yeah.
probably more a dime a dozen, So
Yeah, it's a little bit better now. The labor pool is, I won't say it's loosened up, but like, there was a time there during COVID where it was like, and the majority of our subcontractors, thankfully, through, a lot of years of working together, had only worked for us. So we were kind of like only jockeying between our jobs as to which ones they needed to prioritize. But there was a point where, you know, jobs would sit for weeks or, sometimes even months with some of the supply chain stuff. And then, just the labor shortages that exist. And when we were, behind the eight ball, so to speak, and we'd be pushing, subs or vendors or whatever on the Kaya houses, some of them would, toss their hands up and be like, man, this is hard. Like I can go, build, 10 houses in Origins and,
yeah.
get paid the same amount. And so it was a delicate balance that we had to kind of toe the line of during that time. But it's that's improved a little bit here in the last, year and a half or so.
Yeah. Good deal, man. So we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but in terms of kind of what's next for ROMAIR, whether that's whatever that looks like, because a lot of our listeners are obviously land agents.
Yep.
We call them land advisors at Saunders, but
Yep.
and most of them are in Florida. That's where our largest footprint is, just because we've been around for 30 years or however long it's been. But also we have landowners that tune in and listen to this as well. So in terms of what's next for you guys and how we might be able to assist in that, like tell us a little bit more about that. How can we help you out?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we're looking to grow. It doesn't have to be, geographically right here and, in the Panhandle, but, obviously if there's opportunities that are there for that, we're in the market for it. We're looking to kind of grow our home building business and grow our, resort development business, if you will. And, so if there's, well, I feel like we add, our value in the design and, kind of master planning of the community and amenity creation, experience creation. I feel like that's where we're at our best. But yeah, we're looking to grow both facets of the business. So if there's opportunities with land that, we can try to be of help, or partner or purchase or whatever, we're certainly interested in looking at those opportunities, kind of across the board.
Is there a sweet spot in terms of land acquisition? Like, is there a sweet spot for size, location? What would that look like?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think location, if it's, not too far off the beaten path to where, people can't get there, it's like, we're not, one of these national home builders who can come in and build, 1,000 homes a year, but we can get up there to, in the regional levels of, 100 plus. So, it's hard for me to sit here and tell you exact size or location or demographic or things like that. But, we like to be accessible in an area where, there's existing, homeowner, base already, if you will. And then on the development side, I think that's a little more opportunity. We want to be kind of more focused on the resort community, if you will. So adjacent to, like I said, some of the areas I mentioned earlier, whether that's mountains or, lake or something unique. And it doesn't have to be a prominent location, but something where we can create an experience for our guests, with some outdoor lifestyle.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal, man. Well, Alexander, thank you for coming on, man. We really appreciate it. It was very insightful, and hopefully people listening to it can learn a little bit more about the Panhandle. I feel like we're the misunderstood part of the state.
I tell people are always like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, Florida, North Florida, and they're like, "Yeah, how close is that to Miami?" And I'm like, keep going for about like 9.5 hours, and
it's not close. In fact,
it's not close at all. Yeah,
I lived in Florida my entire life until college, and I've never been to Miami in my whole life. So
you gotta go.
I do need to go, but it's nowhere close at all. Our president Tyler Davis likes to say that Anna Maria is the best beach in America, which I've been to both. It's not. Panhandle has the best beaches, and I'll die on that hill. So.
No knocking on Anna Maria, but yeah, we've got the best, the best beaches anywhere. And like you said, you put that up against anything. So it's a great area. If any of the listeners have never been, schedule a trip down here. It's a great area. It's a growing area, a lot of opportunity with land and development and construction. And it's a great spot to be, to bring family. And, hopefully we're doing our part to, grow the area in the right way. And it's an awesome spot.
Cool. So if people either one want to learn more about ROMAIR or Kaya, or two have deals that might be of interest, how can we find you?
Yeah, reach out. I'm Alexander at romair.com, ROMAIR.com. Feel free to email. You can, I don't know if you put contact info up on this link or whatever, but yeah, you can reach me via email, and
we probably could figure that out, but no promises.
Reach me via email. Go to our website, romair.com, and can inquire on there. One of us will get back to you, and would love to look at some stuff.
Awesome, man. Thanks again. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, man. Me too. I'm glad we're able to do this, and hopefully we can see each other soon.
Yeah, we need to play some golf soon. You need to have me at the member guest.
I know. I missed the sign up, but we'll get you on the next tournament.
Oh, great. All right, man. Take it easy.
All right, David. See you, buddy.
Thank you for listening to In Our Expert Opinion Real Estate Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss any of our upcoming episodes. For more on land and commercial real estate, please connect with us at saundersrealestate.com.